Hey everybody, welcome back to another film of the week. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Just been hitting pretty much, just been rapid fire, just been pumping out content left and right, left and right. My apologies. Um, and this one is a interesting film for me because I, was aesthetically interested by it, and just by bless me. Um, there was a just a an aura to it. There's just something about the energy of which I was seeing visually that made me fascinated to check it out. And that film being Wanda, which was written and directed by Barbara Loden. I believe that's her last name. I apologize if I mess it up. Released in 1970 and is a semi autobiographical portrait of the director's feelings as she stars in the film, incidentally, as a character named Wanda, who is getting out of a fairly toxic relationship, and the immediate feeling from the character is that she has this very wanderous, quite aimless quality to her, which puts herself in. She has very obedient and very content. She's very content with like any given situation that comes to her, which leads to um, a a overall feeling that she bears little dignity or real self respect, and she gets herself wrapped up in a criminal, a bank robber, and she goes on the road with him, and the movie basically uh, paints pretty much the same idea of her aimlessness, and the notable thing about the film is about the production of it, which is that when looking up the film, I actually found that Barbara Loden was uncredited as the writer, which I found to be very, very interesting. And I don't know if that has anything to do with the fact that she is a woman, because remember this is the 70s, so it's a different era, um, or with any other issues that might have plagued the production. I'm not particularly sure, but I find it very, very interesting that her, as the writer of the film, was not given credit for the film. So I found that particularly interesting. I got that from Wikipedia though, so that I could be completely wrong on that. So just fact check me if that's wrong. Um, but for another about the actual film, I'm not getting into the actual film. I think that aesthetically it has a lot of merit to it, as well as thematically. I mean the the study of this particular individual, their inability to voice themselves, I found it to be halfway through to be fairly interesting, and I like the how the visuals also play to that mindset. Immediately as the film starts, there's these shots of construction sites, and it very much illustrates this idea of starting over. And I think that that's kind of in many respects, when people use constructions in film, there's always that idea of rebuilding, that idea of starting over, that idea of tearing down the old self and representing the new self. There's always those qualities, the ideas of identity, that I always feel are within construction when in film. Sometimes, like in something like Taste of Cherry, it's used for a different purpose, but most times I always feel like that's usually the illustration that's used when construction is placed in film. So I found that immediately, as the film started, this idea of starting over, that sense of an aftermath of events, as the landfills, kind of showcase. Um, so I think that aesthetically it has a lot of merit to it, and thematically it is interesting. But where the film becomes um, becomes rather tedious is its redundance. I mean, as I said, half of the film is interesting because of its ideas. The other half is just more or less a stretch of those ideas, or an endurance to those ideas. Because what you get is a film that operates well as a 40-minute film. It's a film that works best as a short film, not much more as a feature length piece. Um, because it's much too knowing, and And I found myself just much too like knowledgeable of its idea, and with it I just found myself sitting in the same overall feeling, which is that why can't she do this, why can't she do this? And through the events, you start to lose that sympathy, because of its length. You start to kind of lose that sympathy that the film wishes to have throughout the film, um, because of her absent-minded, state. There's just points where you're just like, well, why do this? Why put yourself in that position? Um, and the movie, um, like half of it, I found it to be interesting and I mean, like, there's no better illustration of her aimlessness than her not caring about her wallet. Like, to me, like, that's the greatest part in the film for me, because it was a confirmation of that overall idea of who that person is. I just wanted to bring that up real quick. And also, another thing real quick I just forgot to mention is that something notable about the film is that it has no score. I realized that when watching it, is that there wasn't any score to speak of. There was music, but it was like music in places, like in events that would have music. But in terms of an actual score, at least to me anyway, there was no score that was present. Um, and in terms of Wanda, in terms of just the performance led by Barbie Loden, I found it to be fairly spotty, and I would say that for the rest of the performances, that the outlier being, I forgot his name, Michael Fidgens, I think that's his last name. I could be wrong. His performance I found to be very authentic. You just hate his character, and that's the entire point, is to hate his character. And with that hatred that is there, that anger that is there, it's purely from that performance. And he's very authentic and very villainous in what he brings to his performance. But I found the film to be half interesting and then half redundant in like it works better as a short film than it does a feature. It's ultimately where I sit on it. Aesthetically there is a lot of merit to it, and thematically it is interesting in its study of an individual, and in the study of a particular mindset. With that, I found it to be interesting. I just wish that it wasn't as stretched as it was, because ultimately it's a film that works best 40 minutes into it. When you get into its length, which is that of an hour and a half, that other 50 or so minutes just feels unwarranted because of a lack of peeling. There's no other layers that they explore. It's just hanging within the foundation of which it's set up to, at the start. But still, good performance by the criminal. I found the aesthetics to be very interesting, and overall the thematic quality of it is pretty interesting. And I like the study itself. I just think that the study, the overall lesson, the overall portrait is completed 40 minutes in, and beaten into you. That was probably a bad example. Kind of just what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's just pretty much like repeating itself after those 40 minutes. It has the complete study in in the first 40 minutes, and then the rest of the time it's a loop almost, and not a appealing of more layers or a search for other angles. So I found it to be fine, but nothing more than that. In the start, it's a good starting off point, and that's pretty much it. So, yeah. So I found it to be fine. Not that notable. I find the history of the film more interesting than or the production of the film more interesting than the actual film. But you guys know your thoughts on Wanda if you guys have seen it in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Excuse if I seemed a little lightheaded and if I myself was being a little bit redundant in the review. I just need to go get something to eat. So I'm going to get something to eat right now. And yeah, so that's going to be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.